In this video, we will discuss about a nuclear reactor. The picture on the screen is the model of nuclear reactor done by our students for our college science exhibition. What is a nuclear reactor? Generally, we have a thought or we know a nuclear reactors are a device which is used for electrical power energy generation. That means where the nuclear energy is converted into an electrical energy. Yes, nuclear reactors are devices in which nuclear fission reaction takes place in a self-sustained as well as in a controlled manner. The first nuclear reactor built was by Enrico Fermi in USA in 1942. The principle on which the nuclear reactor works is the controlled chain reaction. We know the nuclear fission reaction, that is the chain reaction takes place in a two-way. One is a controlled chain reaction, other one is an uncontrolled chain reaction. In controlled chain reaction, the number of neutrons entering into the next nuclear reactions are kept the same. So, to keep the eye on the nuclear reaction or the nuclear reactor, we make use of the controlled chain reaction as the principle of nuclear reactor. Next, let's see what are the parts of the nuclear reactor. The chief parts of the nuclear reactor are: first we need fuel. Then we need neutron source which will initiate the chain reaction. Third one is the moderator. Then the control rods which helps us to keep an eye on the nuclear fission reaction. Then neutron reflector, the cooling system, and the protective coating, the protective layer or the shielding. Now let's see each parts in detail now. This is the schematic diagram of how a nuclear reactor will look. Okay, now let's discuss each parts of a nuclear reactor in detail. The first part is the fissionable material, or so there wasn't a mistake, it is a fissionable material. It's a typographical error. The fissionable material or the fuel. So the most commonly used fissionable material or the fuel is the heavy nuclei. So the heavy nuclei is like radioactive isotopes of uranium like U-33 and U-238, and thorium 232, and isotopes of plutonium Pu-239, plutonium-240 and plutonium-241. These are the most common fission materials used. Then we need a neutron source to initiate the chain reaction. So the mixture of beryllium with plutonium or polonium is kept along with this fuel to initiate the chain reaction. Next we have moderator. We all know neutrons, based on the energy of the neutron, we can classify the neutrons into fast neutrons, thermal neutrons and slow neutrons. We all know the fast neutrons cannot induce the chain reaction. Only the thermal neutrons can induce the chain reaction. But during a fission reaction, only fast neutrons are emitted. To slow down the fast neutrons, we make use of this moderator. So generally, the moderator is a device which slows down the highly energetic neutrons, that is the fast neutrons coming out as a fission fragments to thermal neutrons. So these thermal neutrons can initiate the further chain reaction. So the function of the moderator is to slow down the fast neutrons to a thermal neutrons. And these moderators should have some property. That means they should have low atomic weight and low absorption cross section for neutrons. If they have a high absorption cross section, these moderators will absorb neutrons. So a moderator should have a property like low atomic weight and low absorption cross section. The materials used as the moderators are heavy water, that is D2O, graphite and beryllium. So these materials are used to slow down the highly energetic fast neutrons. And third chief part is the control rods. They are the one which are helpful in controlling the nuclear fission reactions or controlling the nuclear reactor. These control rods are highly helpful in adjusting the rate of the nuclear reaction. That means they enable the chain reaction to be controlled and prevent it from spontaneously running away. If the nuclear fission reaction is not controlled, then the chain reaction keeps on initiating, exploding the entire nuclear reactor. So we need to have a control over the nuclear fission reaction. This is achieved by means of this control rods. So we have a control rods. So if you want to stop the reaction, we can push the control rods into the reactor core. These control rods should have the properties or the characteristics like large neutron absorption cross section. So when you push the control rods inside the nuclear core, the control rods absorb the neutrons available there by stopping the further chain reactions. Usually boron and cadmium are used as the materials for control rods because boron and cadmium captures the neutrons. They have a high absorption cross section. So if you want to stop the fission reaction, we have to insert the control rods into the nuclear core, and if you take the control rods out of the nuclear reactor, then the chain reaction is started. And the fifth chief part is the neutron reflector. We know in each stage of controlled chain reaction, only one neutron enters the next chain reaction. So if in case that neutron also escapes from the walls of the nuclear reactor, we cannot have the further chain reaction. To bring those, sometimes the neutron may hit the walls of the nuclear reactor and escape from the nuclear core. So to bring those electron from escaping, to bringing it back to the nuclear reactor, we have neutron reflectors. So these neutron reflectors helps in reducing the leakage of neutrons from the core, and also they increase the neutron flux in the reactor core. These materials, the neutron reflectors, should have high scattering cross section and low absorption cross section. This is because if they have high scattering cross section, they will bring the neutrons back into the nuclear reactor core. Basically, beryllium, graphite, tungsten carbide, steel and gold are used as the materials for neutron reflectors. Next, cooling system. We know during each nuclear fission a huge amount of energy is emitted. So when this huge amount of energy is emitted from the nuclear core, if we don't have a proper cooling system, the nuclear core may blast or the nuclear reactor may blast. So to remove the excess heat generated in the nuclear core, we have a cooling system which is continuously running over the nuclear core. So the heat energy evolved here is because of the kinetic energy of the fission fragments when they are slowed down in the fissionable substances and moderator. The cooling systems or the liquids used here should have high specific heat capacity, or they should take more of the energy to go from one state to another, and they should have large boiling point under pressure, usually ordinary water, heavy water, liquid sodium, carbon dioxide, air, certain molten metals and alloys are used as a coolants, which are circulated continuously over the nuclear reactor core, where they take that excess energy and take it to a steam generator, and this steam generator is connected to a turbine which produces electricity in power reactors. Then we have shielding. We know nuclear reactors, in nuclear reactors, more harmful radioactive reactions radioactive radiations will be emitted. Especially the workers working there are exposed to more of a gamma radiation. To protect them, to protect this intensive radiations coming out from the nuclear reactors, the nuclear reactors are generally surrounded by a concrete wall of thickness 2 to 2.5 meters, and they are and by lead. So the lead shielding is because to protect us from the gamma rays. So this is the picture of the nuclear reactor which I have already shown you. So let me brief you how this nuclear reactor works. So at the center of the nuclear reactor you have a core. This is called as the nuclear reactor core, where you have a fuels in the form of a rod, in the form of a rods, where the fissionable materials like uranium, plutonium and thorium are kept here with a mixture of beryllium and polonium. So once the beryllium and polonium reacts, you will get a neutron emitted from it. The neutron emitted from it will initiate the nuclear fission reaction here. Then the fission fragments coming from that nuclear reactions are will go through the moderator, where the fast neutrons get slowed down to a into an thermal neutrons. So we have a coolant waters running around this nuclear reactor. See, the cold liquid is running around it, around the nuclear reactor, and it comes out as a hot liquid, and in the heat exchanger it is converted into a steam, and this steam runs the turbine, and turbine is connected to one electrical generator. We know what is an electrical generator and a turbine. A turbine is like a fan. When the steam comes and hits the turbine, it rotates the fan there, where the mechanical energy is converted into an electrical energy, and power is generated, stored in the electrical generator. And you have a control rods here which helps in controlling the nuclear fission reaction. When you push it outside, nuclear reaction will be initiated. If you push it inside, then the nuclear reaction will be stopped. This is how a nuclear reactor works. And we know the nuclear reactors, the purpose of a nuclear reactor is to predominantly for the production of electrical energy. Though we spend more money on building a nuclear reactor, the power energy obtained from the nuclear reactors contributes to only 2% of our total power consumption. And they are helpful in producing lot and lots of radioisotopes. For example, when a sodium is kept in a nuclear core, when it reacts with the neutron available in the nuclear core, it becomes a radiosodium. By this way, only all the radioisotopes are produced. And nuclear reactors are basically used for scientific purpose, where we can produce large number of radioactive materials needed for the research purposes, and they behave as the source of production of neutrons, and they help us in studying the mechanism of nuclear reactions, and also to study how much radiation damage can be done, and we can study the radiation damage.